Good morning. Hope everyone can hear me. This is Steve Matthiasson Wines. It is a beautiful morning, a little frosty. I don't know if you can hear right now, just real quiet. I'm going to be quiet for a second. You can hear the wind machines going. Sounds like helicopters. That there's a wind machine right. See that there is a wind machine, and there's another one. Those are ours. We're not running them. I don't think it's cold enough, but a lot of people are running them. So anyways, it's a beautiful morning, and so it's a little odd how beautiful and normal things are given the craziness that's going on all around the world right now. Thank God that we still have the vineyards to step into and be transported back to what we love and what feels normal to us. This is this would have been this is getting up on my 26th, Jill and my 26th vintage. And so we've seen fires, we've seen earthquakes, all kind of stuff, I guess. And so here's the new one. So this is our home farm right here, the home vineyard, Matthiasson Vineyard, where there's our house over there. There's Jill. She's following us right now from her phone. There's the barn. Here's Coda. He's getting a little old now, but he's still cranking. And so the reason I wanted to start here was I thought this would be fun to talk a little bit about regenerative farming. I know that there's a lot to look at here. And so where I'm standing here is the edge of our farm. This on the other side here, this is the neighbors. So this is us. That's our truck. That's Alberto, our foreman. And so you can see this is a stream right here. So when we bought this property, visualize none of this stuff growing on the side of this stream. It was considered a ditch, and it was sprayed with Roundup on both sides and just kept barren. So we planted, there's Jill, and so we planted about 12 years ago now, we planted native plants on both sides, and we've selected the plants very carefully to make sure that there is something blooming 12 months out of the year, so that way the beneficial insects have something to eat. They can't, unfortunately, live on what the vineyard can provide. For the most part, most of the beneficial insects need nectar and pollen, which is the problem with monocultures. You don't have the nectar and pollen, and so the only insects you have are stuff that can eat the actual vines. And so what we want is stuff that'll eat the insects that are eating the vines. And so like this plant here is called Ceanothus, California lilac. And all those masses of little tiny flowers are great for beneficial insects, because most of the beneficials are really teeny tiny, and they need a lot of flowers because they can't fly very well, so they're getting buffeted by the wind. But so they might land on this one, or this one. But then when they land on is so small that they can access the nectar without getting caught up in a big ball of nectar, if you can imagine. So small flowers for small beneficials. So that's Ceanothus. This one here down here is Redbud. As you can see, it's just getting going. Bigger flower, good for pollinators, more so than the little parasitic wasps. And if you look over here, this manzanita just finished. So this was blooming like crazy. But you see these flowers are drying up. So this one just finished, and then the Ceanothus is coming on. The coyote bush on the other side, a lot of people consider that like a trash bush because it just kind of comes up anywhere. It's not the most attractive bush, but it has flowers in January, which is a really important time, because there isn't a whole lot flowering at that time to keep the beneficials around. So it's like trying to design in a functional ecosystem. Since the original one was 150 years ago was destroyed, our job as farmers is to try to redesign one that then can take over and start running again on its own. So it's a lot of fun, actually. That's when, regenerative farming is way more fun to me than the conventional, because you're working with ecosystems. Bird boxes. So these are bluebirds, and bluebirds eat insects. So you can see This is a well-used little box. Its nest is coming out the side there. This box needs to be repaired, actually. Glad we're doing this video. But anyways, it's getting good use. That's a raptor perch, so that's for hawks, owls. They can sit there and keep the gophers at bay. That's one. This is really busy right now for the spring work. And then down here we have, so you can see what we're tilling underneath the vines. This is, because we do need to keep it cleared right in around the base of the vine so that we don't get rodents eating the vines. And also, this is a pretty dry year, so eliminate the competition right under the vines. But then we're trying to go no-till as much as we can, so we till under the vines. But then we here, sorry to make everyone motion sick here, but you can see the middles are grass. So right now it's mowed down. For frost season, we mow it down so that it's lower to the ground, but it's really good grasses in there. And so these are actually perennial native grasses. So the roots of these can go down about 8 feet, which is pretty amazing. They live, they can live 6 years, or 10 years. And so they're sequestering carbon like crazy down into the soil, and they use a bunch of the water so that, we get more intensity in the wine, having the water vented off in the spring by the grasses. And so we're just restricting our tillage here. It's kind of ugly right now because we've pulled the soil away from the vines. The next pass, when the rainy season's over, is we'll go through and then flip the soil back under the vines again, and this will be like a little berm that goes under the vines, and then this will all just be grass, which will be knee-high pretty soon. So let's see here. Bird using the box right now. That's pretty cool, right? So I'm going to show you. Sorry, my phone just froze up. Oh, we're back on again. Okay. So what we have, this is Cabernet Franc, these vines. And if I want to show something viticulture wise, if you look at these spurs, you see how they're all leaning this way? They're not straight up. They're leaning that to the inside. That's the east. This is the west. So the reason we do this is so that when the shoots grow up like this, the fruit is hanging on this side, not hanging on this side. This little detail means that our fruit stays much cooler in temperature during the year, and we maintain so many more aromatics and all the high tone, especially the real perfumey red fruits and the sort of Franc character. Whereas if it goes over in this side, with the afternoon sun coming in, we get a lot more jamminess, black fruits, darker fruits, and you lose that high tone. So if you look at I'm going to cross rows over here. So now this is the east side of the vines, and you see in here they're coming out because this is the morning sun. So we want the fruit more color and more better tannin maturity, having that morning sun on there. So versus the downside with the afternoon sun on this side. So let's see. This trellis is called a lyre trellis, if you're curious, and I'm not a fan, to be perfectly honest, because we have to get inside to do our work on this side of the vines. It's not a great trellis for our global warming, but it's the trellis that was here when we bought this property, 2006, and so we work with it. And this pruning is kind of a little bit of our adaptation. You can see down here, this vine was cut off. So this was a Merlot vineyard when we bought it in 2006, and we grafted it. The vineyard was planted back in 1997. We grafted it. These rows to Cabernet Franc. Over there, it continues over to Refosco, then Schioppettino, then Ribolla Gialla, then more Cab Franc, and then we have our global warming trial on the far side, which is Sagrantino, and then little Petit Verdot and Malbec, and Merlot for the Cab. So I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to use my phone. Sorry to reverse this. I can't figure it out. Ah, got it. Anyways, I just wanted to say hi a little bit more in person. And what we have over here, peaches, just finishing their bloom. So you can kind of see these little flowers, little fruitlets on there. And I think we're gonna go taste some wine. So walk over to the backyard and taste some wine. And see if I can see if there's any questions. So I see a Sagrantino with 3 question marks. So the idea with Sagrantino is it's extremely tannic, and the tannins have a sharp grain to them. What I've noticed as the nights have gotten progressively warmer, year on. If you look at I'm going to cross rows over here. So now we're this is the east side of the vines, and you see in here they're coming out because this is the morning sun. So we want the fruit more color and more better tannin maturity, having that morning sun on there. So versus the downside with the afternoon sun on this side. So let's see. This trellis is called a lyre trellis, if you're curious, and I'm not a fan, to be perfectly honest, because we have to get inside to do our work on this side of the vines. It's not a great trellis for our global warming, but it's the trellis that was here when we bought this property, 2006, and so we work with it. And this pruning is kind of a little bit of our adaptation. You can see down here, this vine was cut off. So this was a Merlot vineyard when we bought it in 2006, and we grafted it. The vineyard was planted back in 1997. We grafted it. These rows to Cabernet Franc. Over there, it continues over to Refosco, and then Schioppettino, then Ribolla Gialla, then more Cab Franc, and then we have our global warming trial on the far side, which is Sagrantino, and then little Petit Verdot and Malbec, and Merlot for the Cab. So I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to use my phone. Sorry to reverse this. I can't figure it out. Ah, got it. Anyways, I just wanted to say hi a little bit more in person. And what we have over here, peaches, just finishing their bloom. So you can kind of see these little flowers, little fruitlets on there. And I think we're gonna go taste some wine. So walk over to the backyard and taste some wine. And see if I can see if there's any questions. So I see a Sagrantino with 3 question marks. So the idea with Sagrantino is it's extremely tannic, and the tannins have a sharp grain to them. What I've noticed as the nights have gotten progressively warmer, year on year, that the tannins are getting softer and softer in the Cabernet, and losing that bite that I love in Cabernet. Sagrantino has that in spades. It also has the dried forest floor leafy character that we're also losing as the climate's getting warmer. So we planted a small row of it so that we could learn how it grows and just kind of get a handle on that variety, because it might be 2% blender in 5 or 10 years to try to compensate for the climate. So and it's just really fun checking out Sagrantino, because we love Sagrantino. This row here for quality wine in a warmer growing regions. It's a cross between Cabernet Sauvignon, Carignan and Grenache. So again, this is this little experiment row. We only have 18 vines, and so we're just watching it, and we made a little bit of wine. It was actually really delicious, and so we just wanted to learn about it and keep our options open, basically. So I'm going to try to reverse this again. So if you see this is a new vineyard that we planted. So this trellis is much more suited to, these cross arms. See how wide it goes? And so the fruit will be down in here. This is pruned now, but when the shoots are going up like this to the like at a 45-degree angle, the fruit, when it's down inside here, is protected totally from the direct sun. But then you get the filtered light down through the middle. So this is a more modern style. And then if you see our two vines in every stake, that was an idea we had for organic farming. We have problems with this disease called Pierce's disease that will kill the vine, unfortunately, if the right insect transmits the right disease to it. So we would lose 20-30 vines per year. It's getting worse with the global warming, with the warmer winters not killing it off. So we thought, rather than using insecticides, if we plant 2 vines in every location, if we lose one, we'll replant it, and the other one can take its place for the time being. So, as an example, you can see right here is an example. So this vine is still good, and then we have. Okay, so this is the garden. Thank God for the garden, because we're eating from it every day. So the kale, there's a little cabbage down in there, little parsley, dandelion greens right there. The dandelion greens are absolutely delicious with a little lemon juice and olive oil. Favas. Favas are great because they're really great beneficial insect habitat with all these flowers. And then you get the beans, which are just getting going right now. They're probably ready in about a week or two. So I think it's time to go and pop a few bottles of wine. There's Coda surveying. The fig tree, this is a 110 plus or minus year old fig tree that we've been slowly bringing back, and it's just been cranking. This one tree can produce about 300 pounds of figs, if you can believe that. You can see they're on here just getting started. Little guys, there's one. So be ready in about 2 months, hopefully. Oh, here's the wines over here. Sorry, I'm gonna make everyone car sick. So Linda Vista Chardonnay is, I'm going to switch this again. Linda Vista Chardonnay is, I showed you those wind machines in the background. So basically, if I climb up on top of this thing, if you look way across, here, I'm going to switch this again. You see those trees? That's Linda Vista Vineyard Chardonnay. So the key to that vineyard is that those hills behind us up there, like that mountaintop there, that's Mount Veeder. So all of our soil for Linda Vista came down from there, from Mount Veeder, and washed out into this area, which is very different than the majority of Napa Valley, because most of Napa Valley is volcanic soil. Mount Veeder happens to be marine soil, and so it's clay from deep in the ocean, from the plate tectonic activity out here. And so this little lobe within Napa Valley is you get, for whites you have bright acid, a lot of citrus, and for reds you have the brighter red fruits. Totally different than most of Napa is volcanic, and so you get more of the black fruits on the volcanic soil, and on the whites you get more richness. Linda Vista Chardonnay. Oh, hi. So this is Linda Vista Chardonnay. So the vineyard's right there, and what we did with this wine, also besides, well, I'll tell you, it's a really cool story on that vineyard, because this is considered Chardonnay country. This is where Chateau Montelena, with their Chardonnay for the Paris tasting, was mostly from right here. Like, it's a little bit from Sonoma, Bacigalupi, but it was maybe 85% of it was from right here, right in a couple properties over from Linda Vista. So we still actually sell fruit to them from Linda Vista, because it's a good sized vineyard. But because this is the Paris tasting, and it kind of this became the little Chardonnay corner of Napa, and so Beringer planted a bunch of Chardonnay in this area for their Chardonnay back in like the 80s. This was one of the vineyards they planted in the 80s, and basically it changed hands a few times and just got run into the ground over 30 years basically. So we were able to lease it in 2011 and take over the farm, and we converted it to organic, and it was considered a tear out when we leased it, because the yields were so low because of the years of just conventional farming, soil compaction, all the pesticides. And so we converted to organic. We started improving the soil with cover cropping, and we actually, believe it or not, have tripled the production and we don't use any water, we don't use any fertilizer, it's just soil health. So now the vines are just cranking and going great. And it's a big enough vineyard that we can't pick it all in one day, even if we wanted to. But what we like to do with Chardonnay is we like to start early and then just pick over a period of time and just keep picking the same vineyard. So in this case, we pick it for over 2 weeks. And so it's every single day it's ripening, and we're just continuing to pick again, because we're a small crew, we can't pick that much, but we want that, and we can't process that much in the winery, but we want that, we also want that variation. We want that bright acid, the mineral, we want the green apple, then it moves into the golden apple, then it moves into the pear, and then we start getting into the white peach, and that's sort of our range of harvesting. So then we press a lot, we barrel ferment it, press another lot, barrel ferment it. So pretty soon we have all these are barrel fermenting, but they're picked over the 2-week window. So then when we go to bottle, it all ages on its leaves, but then it all goes back together, and we have that dynamic range. So with brightness to richness, and that's for a single vineyard is all the expression of this vineyard, but it gives you the whole range of what, rather than that one moment in time. It's that there's almost like a texture of just ocean, like ocean rocks, basically, that I really think it's that this site from that marine clay really brings. And I don't know if you for geography of Napa Valley for everybody, but we're about 30 feet above sea level right here. So the San Francisco Bay it's a straight shot right to there. So morning fog in off the bay is really a big part of the terroir here. The Napa Valley is a long skinny valley that goes up like that, and so it's a 45-minute drive to Calistoga, and so the fog hits us, and fog might make it up to the first town, Yountville, but then generally the fog dies off. And so our climate we're like 10 or 15 degrees cooler on a typical day than Calistoga, and so that morning fog and then the afternoon breezes are a really big part of this wine on that marine clay. So the Cabernet,
don't spit.
Napa Valley Cabernet is something that we never thought we were going to make a Cabernet. Cabernet represents a lot, and we were making Ribolla Gialla and Refosco and varieties that we were just really excited about pushing into and trying these like interesting varieties coming from both of our background was more on the organic farming and local food, really before we became a winery. And so Jill was working for a nonprofit 25 years ago that was trying to work with farmers on local food and figure out how to help family farmers stay in business. But 25 years ago and 20 years ago, the best wines we were able to try were the Napa Valley Cabernets. Like the 1990 Mondavi Reserve Cab is still my aha moment in terms of wine. and granted, those wines were different than they are now today, very different. So they were in the alcohols were in the high 12s, low 13s, red fruit, firmness. Just a completely different wine than modern Cab, but totally true to Napa Valley, totally true to our soils and our climate. And so when we started to do a Cab, and so 2010 is when we started to do a Cab, and we said, but we're going to go back to that old style from the 80s and 90s. We don't go all the way back to the 60s and 70s. Those are some seriously bright Cabs. Some of those ones from the 70s had like 8 grams of acid. Pretty typical. But we really think that 80s and the 90s was really a sweet spot in terms of style and vision. But then viticulture has gotten so much better. So viticulture between now and from 1989 is there's no comparison. Like what I was showing you about the spurs, the trellising, organic farming, everything we know about canopy management. There's so much that we know now, but not to lose sight of the original idea of what is balanced, good, balanced, bright Cab. And so, brightness isn't a term that's used much these days with Cabernet Sauvignon. But in our opinion, brightness is just critical to any wine, and Cab is uniquely suited to have brightness and power at the same time. Weight without heaviness is the mantra. So the Cab is, unfortunately, where we're standing right now is not Cab country. If you can see the lay of the land, this is loamier soil. So this is great for, the aromatic varieties that aren't as much about texture. That's why we love Cabernet Franc here. We love Schioppettino. But the Cab is closer to the hills where there's rocky soil. It's really critical to have drainage and early that for the vines with Cabernet need to be working for their water the whole season in order to get great texture and depth in the wine. So the vineyards, one vineyard's in Rutherford, that gives us the bright red fruits. One vineyard's and the kind of classic dustiness, kind of like that's the sagebrush, lavender kind of tea. And then one vineyard in Coombsville. Coombsville is volcanic. That's how I'm kind of pointing that way to Coombsville. It's like a volcanic caldera, powerful site. So we get the black fruit and we get the structure from that vineyard. And then that's the Dead Fred vineyard. And then here in Oak Knoll is where you get the soft red fruits. And so the Cab from Oak Knoll is almost Merlot-like. And so those 3 sites make this a really beautiful blend. And this idea on this one is the old school, Napa Valley blend, basically, where where the different locations bring something different. I always think of Cabernet is the blending grape. To me, Cabernet is like oil. I mean, it's great for the right single vineyard in Cab is awesome, but Cabernet is like oil paints, so you can layer it. Versus like Pinot, you wouldn't blend because it's like watercolors, and it can run together and make brown. So you can't stand up to blending, but Cab can, and it's just so nice to just layer the vineyards with Cab and just watch that wine come together. So I spit that first one, but with everything that's going on right now, I think this is time to start drinking some wine, even though it's 8 o'clock in the morning here in California. Well, I hope you guys are holding up okay. I hope everyone's healthy that's watching this. I hope everyone is, is going to make it through these times. I know that probably a lot of you are working in restaurants, and I can't even imagine what it feels like right now to just wonder what the hell the future holds. And so I just want everyone to know that you're all in our thoughts, and we're going to work with you together and figure out how to come out of this. We are all in it together, and so we're just going to stay strong, and we're going to stay open and be safe for right now, and then be smart about how to pick back up again